Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Mind Your Nest. I'm your host, Jennifer Rosen. So this morning, I decided to, do a little off the cuff. And I have my producer, Janine Stella, in studio with me today.
Good
Hi,
morning.
Janine. Good
Hi.
morning. I decided to take a step back and talk a little bit about Mind Your Nest. I'm not quite sure that I got into the full story of where the name came from. And as I've mentioned before, that Janine was the one that really brought Mind Your Nest to life with the cover art. I'm going to go back, probably 50-some years to how I was raised in the Midwest. We were a pretty traditional family. We had dinners on Sunday night. We had dinners as a family when my dad was home from work, except for during tax season. And we really always talked about family stuff at the table. Personal, business, how it related to money and things going on with the family. For me personally, I didn't really get into a lot of personal stuff at the dinner table. For some reason, I started seeing a therapist and would talk to my therapist about those personal things. But it was pretty well known in our family of 5 that we just talked about private matters privately as a family. I think my dad being an accountant and a businessman, and then my older brother becoming a lawyer, my younger brother being an accountant, we always knew how to mind our matters and mind our personal business as well as that of our clients, whether we were working with them from a financial perspective, doing their tax returns, doing their bookkeeping, helping doing their whatever legal assistance they needed, that we always knew that the world was between us and our client, nobody else. It was nobody else's business. And having integrity and confidentiality for ourselves as in our family helped us remind us that's what our job was with our clients, that it didn't really matter. I remember when I was working for my dad over the summers before I started working for them as a professional, I thought it was cool to see tax returns that had so many zeros on it. I thought, oh my God. But it didn't really matter at the end of the day because those tax returns that had all of those zeros were just as important as those tax returns that didn't have that many zeros. And that there was a person behind every tax return. There was a person, there was a family, there were family members. It didn't really matter. And just a reminder that everybody deserves to have some privacy in their life. That's where Mind Your Nest came from. But one of the things I know I've talked about before, my dad had a bunch of witticisms. And one of my dad's...
That's a good word, witticisms?
Witticisms.
That's great.
Yeah. One of his witticisms, which was great, was stay healthy, study hard, and stop spending. And I always got a second stop spending. I'm not quite sure if it was because I was a girl or probably because I like to buy things. I had a never-ending supply of black shoes and black pants. But those were some of his wise words to me, especially when I went off to college. And I remember when I went to school, I went to University of Kansas freshman year, then transferred to University of Maryland. And I can't remember if my dad and I talked about balancing our checkbooks before I went to college or during college. I'm not really sure. It's probably during college.
At least you had that conversation.
Yes.
Art, I'll get into my family in a minute, but it was the complete opposite.
Yeah, I'm sure it was after I transferred because my freshman year at University of Kansas, after my dad got sick, I was on the phone all the time. And I remember soon after he was released from the hospital, he started sending me these letters and a copy of the phone bill because I was just on the phone all the time after my dad got sick. And I was just on the phone constantly. I don't know, I was afraid and fearful and all those things. He started sending me copies of the phone bill, and they were pages and pages long. And all I asked him to do after he was home recovering, that I just wanted him to send me long letters and a lot of letters. He didn't really have the stamina back then in the beginning to talk on the phone for a long period of time. So he thought he'd be be quirking everything, and he had a calculator tape because he was an accountant. So he would take the roll of the tape. I said, Dad, I'd really like you to write me a long letter. So he took a very long piece of tape. Dear Jen, here is your long letter. And then he wrote like a ginormous L, and then he signed it all the way at the bottom. Love, your darling Dad. And then he sent that to me, and he stapled it to a copy of the phone bill. And that was it. So it was just a message to me like, what are you doing? Do you really need to be on the phone this many times every month?
I love that you had that closeness with your family, especially being in a family from accountants and people that are actually looking at financial statements and things of that nature. Growing up in an Italian family, you didn't ask anything because you'd be scolded. Even when my father, God rest his soul, when he passed away, my dad didn't have life insurance. My dad didn't have anything. And in fact, in the ICU, while he was actively dying, with the week he was dying, he knew he was dying. And he's, oh, crap, I have nothing in order. So there he is giving my husband passwords to his stock accounts to transfer money, literally laying in the hospital bed, transferring as much as he could because he knew this was it and there was no other way for me. It was a nightmare. And then that went into probate. It was like one thing after another because how dare you ask? What are we going to do with the house? What are we going to do with this, that? I have everything in order.
Yep.
And shuts the conversation down. Don't you think you owe it to your family to have that conversation so that they can make plans and they can process that? But in Italian households, it's just very taboo.
Yeah, I think that it's taboo in so many households. I've talked to you before about, I always felt that our family situation was unique within our family, but that's just how my parents raised us. And whether it was because the profession my dad was in and then the profession that my brothers and I got into, it was just a natural progression of what a family should talk about as you got older and as illness started spreading and affecting your family. However, I do know that the majority of people don't have that. And also a lot of people wind up losing people tragically. For some people who are slowly declining and have a slow journey to death, which is unfortunate, there are a lot of people that just unfortunately drop dead. And then the family are left to not only they have to grieve the sudden loss, but then they also have to figure out what's going on. And that's really very difficult because you don't really have the opportunity to grieve and really deal with your emotions because you're making sure that the lights stay on and you're making sure that there's money in the account. And let's say even down to you have to pay for the funeral and you have to make sure you have money to pay for the funeral. For a lot of families, that becomes a huge burden.
Let's dial it back. So 50 years ago to now, right? What has happened in America since you and I came from very different childhoods and upbringings and conversations at the dinner table to a lot of things that are in unrest and cancel culture today.
Yes.
It still is taboo to talk about, let's say, religion, politics. At the table, people have strict rules at family gatherings. We don't bring this up. We don't bring that up, which is, it's hard that we can't have a discussion about anything. It's still hard to have discussions without arguments.
Right.
And look at where we've come today as a society and as a culture. It's out of control. And I know you and I were talking about that before we got on today.
Yes.
I look at even what happened with The View yesterday. I don't know if Charlemagne the God, he's an avid political analyst and he has his own show and he's for the current administration and not for the president-elect. However, he was on The View arguing with Whoopi about how even though that is his political party, how you can defend bad behavior and bad decisions, specifically with Hunter pardoning his son.
Yes.
And how certain things are just wrong and how as a party you still defend bad behavior just because it's a party. And he got in an argument with her. And it was very enlightening because it's so interesting that even on the same side, people can't admit when people make bad decisions. They just support because of the party and not because of the behavior.
You and I, like you said, have talked about this before. And one of the things that when I knew that something was like not feeling right was many years ago when all of this stuff started. And I remember like thinking and saying to myself, I'm just minding my business. I'm minding my matters. I'm taking care of my family. I'm continuing to live the same life that I've always lived. And just going along, getting up, getting dressed, going to work, all those same things. And then all of a sudden it wasn't okay to just get up, get dressed, just focus on your life and take care of your own business. All of a sudden, all of these questions and conversations, it felt like it was a requirement now. Whereas before you would call your friend like, hey, what's going on? How's your day? What's happening? Oh, I was out of town. All of those normal conversations. And then all of a sudden it wasn't. You weren't allowed to have those familial, friendly, chuckling talks about just nothingness. I think the majority of relationships, half of the time, it's great to just talk about nothing and share your lived experiences or differences or whatever with other people. And then it became unacceptable. And I've always wondered, was it a switch? Did somebody flip a switch? Was there a signal sent out into the universe? And was I don't know, just not getting the signal? But I just kept living my life and doing what I had always done. And I was getting so much animus thrown at me. And it was really sad and hard. And feeling like you were always on the defense because you were continuing to live your same life that you had always lived. And then all of a sudden, I don't know, people, I guess, took a vote and decided it was unacceptable. So I really never understood that many years ago. And I would really do my best to have conversations about it because part of life is meeting people that are different from you, that come from different backgrounds and have different values and beliefs and everything. To me, that's part of having a life well lived, is meeting people that don't look like you, that don't sound like you, that, I don't know, like spicy food. And
a lot of people, though, cannot handle that, the diversity. And everyone is pro-diversity.
Yeah.
But what does diversity mean to you? Is it just color of skin, or is it political beliefs? Is it point of view?
Right.
It's almost like it's only accepted in certain categories.
Yes.
But if you disagree with someone on, let's say, whether they're pro-life or pro-choice, you can't have a normal discussion without there being some kind of blow up and people cursing at each other.
Yeah.
Where does it stop, and how do we move forward as a society?
So I'm going to give you two specific examples of that were really questionable to me. There's a saying, I just couldn't square the circle when I was part of this conversation. And it was a couple years ago, or whenever Roe v. Wade got overturned and sent back to the states to decide. And I was on this Zoom call with probably, 40 to 50 people, and was about nothing having to do with this. It was about families that are family members of addicts, and it was a support group that we were on. But for some reason, it turned towards the recent decision and the outrage about that. And I was just listening. We took our turns talking, and this person just took a hard left turn and wanted to talk about that, and just was so vehemently against anyone telling her what to do with her body. And then somebody else started talking, and they were talking about the shots and how you should just do it and nobody should have a choice. Everybody should just get in line. And
for the vaccine?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this is like such a contradictory conversation right now. And I was looking at people like agreeing with that too. And I just needed someone to help clarify the situation. And so I decided to jump in and say something. And just calmly, I put my hand up in the Zoom, whatever. And I said, I'm having a hard time understanding like what I just listened to. And I said, I'm hoping that somebody can explain this to me. I said, you're saying on the one hand that you can go ahead and have an abortion through delivery of a baby and that it's okay to kill a baby. And I've never talked about my feelings about this. It's personal, it's private. It's nobody's business. Why does it really matter? It's between me, myself, and I've definitely had conversations with my daughter about it. I brought that up. Okay, so you're saying it is okay to blah, blah, blah. I said, but then on the other hand, you're saying it can't be whatever they say, my body, my choice, because you have to take this shot. I said, so help me
contradictory.
Help me understand. So I said, it's nobody's business what I do with my body. It's my body. And did we have to show a list our whole entire life? All these personal, private decisions that have to do with our health. It's personal, it's private.
It's totally personal. And look what they do to our military. They line them up and just shot after shot. They go through a conveyor belt of people shooting them with vaccinations. There's no question. They're not allowed to question what they're injecting in their body. They're just lined up. And I don't know about you, but I want to know what's in it. And we should be asking what was just injected into our bodies by the government, and how dare we question that.
Right.
But how dare we be upset if someone wants to kill an innocent child?
That's right.
And it upsets me. I actually had to delete something from a client's podcast because I decided to open my mouth. They asked me my opinion. And one thing I will never do is, if someone asks me for my opinion, I'll give it to them.
Right.
I'm not going to sugarcoat it. And this particular conversation was about politics and about Roe v. Wade and abortion. And they said, Janine, what do you feel about this? And they were talking about the current administration and who's coming in next and all this stuff. And I said, I find it's very interesting that in this election, one of the major issues on the ticket was killing babies.
Right.
And they got so offended. They got really upset. And I could see on the camera that they were just like, I can't believe she just said that. And it's, what did you want me to say? It's killing babies.
Yeah.
How do you want me to sugarcoat that? How else do you, whether you agree with it or not, it's still killing life. They didn't like my terminology, and they told me to take out the terminology. And I just felt that it's interesting that my body, my choice is, it's okay to kill innocents and to kill lives at will, instead of saying, why don't we be responsible adults?
Correct.
And learn how to close our legs and not use abortion as a means of birth control, and maybe be a little bit more responsible in that capacity. But I can't even have that discussion with people.
I agree.
It's not that I'm pro-life or pro-choice.
Right.
I really, it's based on circumstance, right? In my opinion, it's just, for me, it's based on circumstance. However, let's call a spade. At the end of the day, it's still killing life.
Yeah.
And if you kill innocent life, but yet you're against the death penalty, that's a contradiction in itself. It's just all these continuous contradictions in our society that are mind-boggling to me. I don't understand it.
And I do agree specifically with you where, like, why do we have to change words to make somebody else not feel so
offended?
Yeah, which I really, truly don't understand. Get a grip. Pull up your big girl panties. I'm 57. I'm about to be 58. And I really loved growing up. And just say it. Why do I have to, and I hate this word, but I really can't think of another word, like, why do we have to pee-foot around everybody? And because somebody is so sensitive to hear something that they may or may not like. And I think that the response from people that are so offended, it's so out of the realm of being a realistic human being. It's almost like they have to overemphasize their reaction to something that maybe makes them feel comfortable because maybe they have nothing else going on in their lives. I'm not quite sure, but I really don't get offended. If you want to say the word, there are a lot of people that like to swear. The F word is one of my favorite words in the world. And sometimes people have to use a certain affect or a word to explain themselves. And I've never been offended by how somebody else explains something or wants to have a conversation.
It's their expression. It's how they talk.
Exactly. And believe me, the past couple of years in the beginning, I definitely knew when I felt charged up when having a conversation with somebody who completely felt differently than I. However, it was really both of us speaking to the extremes, which I think had something to do with it. And then over time, I calmed down and I realized, like, all of what we're watching is a show. And I think that's one of the reasons why I was never interested to talk about politics or religion or any of those potentially conflicting conversation, because I never really paid much attention to it. My whole life, like growing up, yeah, I'm Jewish. Yeah, I'm a high holiday kind of a Jew. Yeah, I liked what Ronald Reagan said. The 9 most dangerous words in the English language are, I'm here from the government. Hi, I'm from the government and I'm here to help thing. But I've always been pretty cynical about the government because they're not there to help you. And maybe that's why. Maybe because I've always have my hand out, just like you stay on your side, I'll stay on mine. Because I do believe, like in what you were saying, personal sovereignty, personal responsibility, minding your nest, taking care of your business. Nobody's here to save you a thing. And like the world does seem so insane.
In total, everyone's living in total contradiction.
Completely.
And judgment of other people.
Right.
And honestly, at the end of the day, as long as someone is not hurting other people or harming themselves, it does not affect my life.
That's right.
It just doesn't affect me. I'm not going to get involved in someone's situation.
Right.
It's not my monkey, not my circus. And
I love that saying.
That's my favorite saying that I live my life by. Not my monkey, not my circus. Yep. It's not my responsibility. That craziness is not my responsibility.
Right.
I have my own responsibility, and that's to myself, my family, my animals, my inner circle, my clients. Everything else doesn't matter to me.
That's right. Yeah, that's such a great point, because I feel like the outrage that I've seen and been in physically, whether it's relationships that people decided that I wasn't worth continuing on with because of my decisions, not being invited to high holidays or Thanksgiving by my own family because I felt differently. I do believe in that too. Like everything that's happening around us, while I might have an opinion about A, B, or C, it doesn't stop me from getting up every day and doing what I have to do, like you just said. And so that's the surprising thing. It's like the global outrage or these protests or these people that are chanting like such disgusting, venomous, evil things towards other people.
And
like,
loitering and
like
defaming public property.
Yeah, like where's the decorum?
So.
Like where's the decorum? Where is the civilness? Get your shit together.
Get it? Yeah, exactly. Get your shit together.
Get your mirror out. And if you are so outraged by what is going on in the world or decisions that are made that you might think you are just so have to be on the front lines about, if that's your priority, then what's really going on in your own personal life that you are avoiding because you're projecting your unhappiness, your anger, your frustration, all of your negativity on something else that may or may not truly be impacting your life? And so I always find that curious and suspicious when other people, especially of the past week or two, have expressed such vitriol towards other people that have a different opinion.
It's outrageous.
That to me is, I don't know. I just don't get it. I really.
And at the end of the day, I love my family members, even if they may not have the same beliefs. We're family.
Right.
I'll take a bullet for them because blood is thicker than water, no
Yeah.
matter what. That stuff doesn't matter. What
Right.
matters is how you treat one another.
Right.
And having diversity and difference of opinion is a healthy thing. Otherwise, what do you have to talk about? If you constantly
Right.
agree on the same issues, what do you have to talk about? How do you think? How do you develop curiosity on a topic? How do you grow as a human being? You need different opinions to be able to
Evolve as a person, with a relationship.
and have growth.
For
Absolutely.
For sure. I believe, and I've heard this from a couple other podcasts that I've talked about, but I truly believe for my life, like if you're not in a growth mode, I'm not saying every single second of every single day, but being open to different people, exploration, learning something new, or I don't know, turning left and instead of you miss the turn right exit. I think that's makes for such a much more enjoyable life. And
That's a good point.
yeah, and one of the things that I have always talked about, and I think that's one of the reasons why my move here back in 2022 wasn't as challenging. And I think you and I have talked about it before. I grew up in a pretty homogenous environment, but I've always worked with people from everywhere. And starting from when I was 13, not everybody grew up like I did. People came from different places. They had accents or whatever the case may be. And I've always loved that part of being in the professional world. Learned from other people, heard about them growing up. Some were completely different. And I really think that's what living a really interesting life is all about, is really meeting those different people, short, tall, thin, fat, black, white, Hindu, whatever. I can't even tell you how cool it has been for me to meet so many different people from really so many different countries that have different accents. Some have a southern drawl, some have a East Coast accent, some Haiti. And I don't know, I just think it's really cool. And isn't that kind of a exciting part of life?
It is exciting. I think as an American culture, we are brought up to believe that we are the only culture, the only language, the only society that matters.
Yeah.
And we are conditioned, and that takes place in our media and in everything that we do in every other country in the world, especially when I lived abroad. They have world news, what's going on all over the world.
Yeah.
At your fingertips. It's very worldly. It's not centered around the country that you're living in.
Yep.
And so I think a lot of times when we go abroad, we're in this Americanized bubble where we think we're the only opinion, we're the only superpower. We have this elitist mentality that a lot of the world doesn't, they just don't identify with, because they're like, these Americans living in a bubble? We really are living in a bubble. It's not a bad thing. And in fact, I always say I live in my own bubble.
Yes.
I create my own bubble.
Yes.
I create the world I like. When I go on social media, I unfollow anyone that I don't want to see any of their feed. Instead of unfriending them, I just won't follow them so I won't see anything. So when I log on to social media, I live in this rainbows and butterfly world.
I love it. I was just going to say bubblegums and rainbows.
And there's nothing wrong with creating your bubble of happiness.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that, because at the end of the day, you're all that matters to yourself, right?
Yeah.
And your happiness and your growth. That's how I live my life, because instead of festering on things that people say or comments or political rants on social media, I just want to live a happy life.
Yeah. And the happiest you can possibly live. People say, oh, I just want to be happy. Not every day is bubblegums and rainbows. We don't do cartwheels every single day. But I completely agree with that, because when I have read these rants of people, sometimes people will say, oh, don't have your primary default basis of communication on texting, because it's very flat. You don't hear somebody's intonation when they're talking to you, and you don't see the emotion behind it. And that's how we feel with social media and these posts of the people that are so angry, that have been so angry since November 5th and beyond, is, wow, oh my God, are you okay? Are you okay?
No, people are mentally unstable. And there's a huge epidemic of mental health in this country
Yeah.
that is just outraged. People are outrageous. You
Yeah.
can get shot at a stoplight if you honk your horn at someone.
I know.
This rage, and a lot of it has to do with not talking about things, or as a child not having that anger. I know for me as an adult, it was really hard not talking about finances with my father. I learned how to balance my own checkbook. I didn't understand spending when I got to college. I had been given a debit card for the first time. We didn't talk about those things.
Right.
Looking back, I wish I would have had those conversations.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And it's just something that was not spoken about.
I also think that, in a way, in your specific experience, and as we get older, like these issues that we've stored away, the furthest drawer in the filing cabinet that were just lying dormant, those things, I think, slowly start to creep up as we get older. And as you were saying, as we start to get older, maybe as we think about our own mortality, in addition to all the animus that has been building up for all of these years, I think for some of us, I'll say it just for myself, I can't speak for anybody else, but I do feel like in a way these past however many years it's been have been churning something inside of us that maybe has been churning that dormant drawer. And like you said, that's why everybody seems to be off the rails or close to being off
just
the rails.
On edge.
Yeah. And I equate it to, in my situation, like being squashed. Oh, you feel this way. You're actually going to be cut off, not invited, not included because we're afraid of you.
You're ostracized.
You're a leper.
Right.
Anything that you have to say is irrelevant to my life anymore. 5 days ago, it was great. It was fine. You were welcome anytime, any day. And then all of a sudden, you're not. And I do think that, human beings that have been dealing with issues for such a long time and then have been swooped up in all of this, and I do think it's been purposeful, you're just fueling the fire with somebody who is going to break. And then I think also with other things that unfortunately our government has decided to do, when your eyes can't lie to you anymore and you see how other people, not part of this country, are just getting a full ride. That how people that have crossed the border are being incentivized, and whatever benefit they're getting, the American citizens are outraged.
And we're paying for it.
That's exactly right. And why can't we talk about that? Why can't we just have a civil conversation and stop getting caught up in this psyop? I don't watch the news. I don't
either.
Yeah, I still don't understand how people think that the corporate press is out there for the benefit of the Americans. But I've learned to get my snippets of news from a few different sources, and then I feel like, okay, I'm good. But then I still have my own critical thinking that I decide what's best for me. And if this really, like you were saying, affects me personally on a day-to-day basis, fine, I'm going to pay attention to it. Otherwise, I'm going to go on with my day.
I think in people that suffer from strange illnesses, such as something I have that I was diagnosed with over 10 years ago now, when I'm stressed, it festers and I get what's called a flare-up with this particular disorder that I have pertaining to my bladder. Anytime I'm stressed, that flares up, and I'm in immense amount of pain for weeks at a time. My health and wellness is not worth getting aggravated over. It's just not. If anyone wants to live in their bubble, it's a healthy bubble. Just decide who you want in it and what you have in your bubble.
I completely agree with that. Pam once said, I think when I first met her, your vibe attracts your tribe.
That's right.
And I don't think in all of my years of being on this planet, I'd really ever heard of that. And I think it's fantastic because that is so spot on. And I think especially now that I'm older and my kids are older and I feel like I'm living this really incredible life here in Florida, that's never been more true, that saying. And sometimes you're not going to have everybody in your tribe agree with your vibe, but that's really part of it, I think.
that's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to disagree on certain
Yeah.
things. Make fun of each other.
That's right.
Be self-deprecating about it. Laugh at it. That's the way we can get our points across in society. We can joke and have a good, fun, friendly conversation that we'll remember.
Yeah.
As opposed to cutting someone off and ending a friendship over one stupid conversation, which I've been guilty of.
Yes.
But
there is nothing better than when all of us get together, the giggles, the laughter, the hilarity that goes on. And all of us come from so many different places around the country and around the world. And it doesn't really matter because we're together, because, I don't know, we bring a lot of joy to each other when we're in each other's space.
That's right.
I think it's fun. Some people like different kind of foods, different kind of music, whatever. Pam likes your classic rock and roll. And, I like to infuse a little R&B and, some other types of music. But that's, why we love and adore her. I will say that it has been getting a little bit easier, I think, to accept and process the vitriol a little bit more as time has gone on, even though it's still hurtful. I definitely don't feel like I'm getting as charged up as I used to be. Like you said, it's just deciding who you want in your bubble and being okay with it.
And embracing the diversity and the differences that people have.
Yeah.
We have so many different types of personalities in our girl gang group, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of different political beliefs, a lot of different personal and different cultures. And we just all have a good time. And that's what matters in life. Can you go to bed happy and have a fulfilled life?
Oh, yeah.
That to me is worth its weight in gold. It's worth everything.
Yeah, because I don't think that your peace of mind and your mental health and being is ever worth sacrificing your soul for.
That's right.
I really don't. I've seen what it's done in the past for me personally, as well as some other people that I love and care about. And does it all really frickin' matter?
What matters is when you lay your head on your pillow, who's next to you, who's with you, who's there in spirit with you.
Yeah.
Is your home a happy place? Is it your Zen den that you can come home to and feel tranquility and peace? Nothing else matters.
Yeah, no, I agree. I will say that after having been in Chicago recently to see my mom, she was supposed to come here for Thanksgiving and she had a couple falls. So I got on a plane and I was there for about a week. This is my fourth time going back. I guess I should still say home. I was born and raised and lived there for 55 years. So I went there, I stayed with her, and it was probably, of the 4 times that I have gone back, it was probably the best visit I had. And when I first moved here, I was getting a lot of negative energy towards myself from people from back in Chicago, just saying some very unkind things about why I decided to move to Florida. But this time, I just felt like free and calm and at peace.
Because you let all the shit go and said, I'm just going to enjoy and have the blessings and the positivity of my visit, as opposed to all the junk on the brain that you would go there with and
I was ready for
battle.
battle. Yeah, and it was like each time, the first, second, and third time, I felt like I had to put my armor on because I didn't know if I was going to be getting any cheap shots from people.
That's right. You're on the defense.
Completely. And this time I just went. I was easy breezy, light and easy, which is one of the things I love saying about living here in Florida. Even when we have storms, it's just, I don't know, mellow. And I went and I had the best time. I ran into some people that I haven't seen since before I moved. And I don't know, I think my cheeks and my smile definitely got the best workout for the week that I was there. And it was fantastic. It really was. And I got on the plane and just was really grateful that I had a place to always go back to. And my friends were still there welcoming me with open arms. And we just talked about life, not all this craziness that was going on, which is nice.
I love that for you, that you had that experience and that you had such a great visit. and you're going fresh into a new year, a different type of peace after your last visit.
Completely. You're absolutely right. I really can't believe January 1st will be 3 years. I got on that plane January 1st, 2022,
Wow.
purposefully to start the new year and to celebrate my 55th birthday. And I'm just excited to keep moving forward and living and breathing and experiencing and really trying to do some things that I've never done before here. And hopefully whoever's wants to come along for the ride of their life with me, welcome aboard. And I hope I get to continue on other people's ride as well.
I love that. And when this airs, Jennifer, this will be right before the new year.
Yeah.
So I would say to all your listeners and for us in general, wealth, health, prosperity, happiness in the new year.
Mm-hmm.
And
enjoy.
Yeah.
And have a giggle. There is nothing better than just getting together or being around people that bring joy to you and that you might bring a little bit of joy to them, and just celebrating the fact that we get to live in such a beautiful place.
I agree.
Yeah. All right, friends. So this was a little bit different. It's always good to throw in a curveball now and then. You know what to do. I hope everybody has a great rest of the day. And don't forget, always mind your nest.